Hello. Usually I guess normally we have an introduction, but I'm introducing myself. Hi, welcome to my webcast. My name is Bronwen Aker, and this is more cybersecurity lessons learned about securing Copilot in your organization. So if you didn't attend the webcast that I did in May, we're going to do a bit of review of what was covered in that webcast, but also touch on recent updates to what has happened in specifically the Copilot space and in the AI space in general a bit as well, because it is a rapidly evolving field. It is just nuts how quickly things are changing. We're going to talk about the different Copilot tiers, pricing, and features. Believe me, it is germane. It has to do a lot. It will impact the security issues tremendously. We're also going to talk about security risks, insider threat implications, best practices for securing Copilot within organizations, and also I'm going to throw out some references for tools and resources for ongoing monitoring and protection. And like that. Now, in preparing any talk, I have to make certain, excuse me, I have to make certain assumptions about you. And for today's presentation, I am assuming that you already understand basic cybersecurity concepts and practices. I also assume that you're already familiar with Microsoft 365 and its products. I'm not saying that you're an expert and you know how to rebuild it from the ground up or anything, but you should already have some familiarity. You know what Microsoft 365 is, you know what Word and the different applications are, that kind of thing. I'm also assuming that you're already familiar with Copilot and other large language models. You know about prompts and prompt engineering. You know that LLMs can be hacked. And you want to know more about how to protect yourself and the others who are in your care. And this is a thing about cybersecurity people that is different from other IT fields, is that we assume the burden of care. We assume the burden of care for the people around us, for the organizations that we work for. And I know that you are here because you've taken on that burden and you want to be able to help protect and defend the people and your coworkers who are in your life. So why should you give a hoot about what I have to say? Well, hi, I'm Bronwen. I'm also known as Corvus, the Cybrarian, and if you ever see me on Twitch, I'm called Game Old Lady. What can I say? I have reached that point of my career where it is now embarrassing to admit how many years I have been doing development of various flavors. I've done web, desktop application, mobile application. I also did technical training for a long time and have lots of stories on that front. Back in 2017, I decided it was time to switch career paths to something really easy like cybersecurity. Ha ha ha. And then in 2018, this guy named John Strand asked me to come and work for him. And I've been with BHIS ever since. My latest technical obsession is AI research. And part of the reason for this is because I was on the bleeding edge when web development first took off. I built my first web page in 1992. And for those of you who don't remember or weren't around, the web wasn't even invented until 1989, 1990. So, yeah, I was on the bleeding edge. And by 1995, I was webmaster for a small ISP. And I've seen how the web is being used today. And I rightly or wrongly feel some responsibility for the way that web technologies have been abused. And part of my personal motivation for learning more about artificial intelligence is to try and provide more safeguards, more override, more security to keep people from abusing AI and these new generative technologies in ways that will harm people. So anyway, the bottom line, I'm a geek. I've been around the block more than twice. I've seen a lot of natural fertilizer. Moving right along. Full disclosure. This presentation was created using AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, Dolly, Midjourney, and a partridge in a pear tree. Anyway, they were, however, at all times under adult supervision. That is, of course, assuming that you consider me to be an adult. Your mileage may vary. So let's get on with the recap. What we knew before is that Copilot is automatically included with all 365 flavor products. You do not have a choice. Microsoft and other large tech companies are shoving artificial intelligence down your throats, even or especially when you don't want it. So you don't have a choice. If security is your jam, you don't have a choice. You have to learn about Copilot just as a survival mechanism. One thing that many people may not know is that all Copilot is ChatGPT with extra guardrails and extra constraints. We knew this before. Now, the full impact of Copilot to security is not fully known. The reason for this is that OpenAI, Microsoft, Anthropic, DeepSeek, whoever, all of these companies who are developing AI don't bother to tell us when they make changes. So the challenge and frustration from a cybersecurity perspective is that we are always playing catch up because we don't know what's going to be released until after it's out and after it's causing problems. It's evolving very fast, and BHIS and other security companies are struggling with this challenge to try and make sure that we are able to help our customers, our clients, and the world to be as safe as possible dealing with all of these tools that are just being thrown out even when they're half baked. Bottom line, knowledge is power. I'm here to share what little I know about this specific sliver of the AI space. And I encourage you, please, if you know of something that I didn't cover or that I should cover in a future webcast, reach out, let me know. Share your knowledge with each other because this is evolving very quickly. It is impossible for any one person to stay up to speed on all of this stuff. And we really have to help ourselves and each other in this space because, and I'm going to go on a limb here, the tech companies are not going to do it. They are interested in making money and in promoting this technology, even or especially when it isn't ready for prime time. So all of this started at the beginning of the year with a simple question. Now, January of this year, a client request came in to Anti-SOC, our continuous pen testing group. And one of our clients asked the Anti-SOC team to test Copilot within their environment. And what was found is that Copilot worked beautifully to expose passwords and to help create phishing and OSINT opportunities. Wonderful recon tool, amazing at finding all kinds of things. And this raised a question. Could Copilot be used within our own organization at BHIS to do bad stuff? So I started doing some research, and that was when I discovered that the licensing differences have a strong impact on what the security issues are. And I will be getting into this more in depth as we go along. So not only does the service tier impact the security issues, but it also impacts the options that you have as an organization, as an IT department, as a SOC, as a whatever, to address and counter those potential risks to your organization. The free tier is the least hazardous. And the reason is it grants Copilot the least amount of access to your data. And I'm talking files, I'm talking shares, I'm talking emails, I'm talking Teams messages. The free tier doesn't have most of that. But as soon as you get into the business or enterprise level tiers, now the gates get open. Copilot is given much more access, and that's where you start getting your more significant security risks. Now, one of the things that I did to help further test this, I reached out to our IT people and said, "Hey, can I get an enterprise license for Copilot?" And they said, "Here, sure." And boom, all of a sudden, Copilot could read all my emails. Copilot could read all of my team's messages. Copilot could look at any document that I had access to. It truly was frightening for someone from the security space. And even more so, using prompt engineering, I could take that access and turn it into significant insider threat attack potential. And that's just the way it is. As I continue to dig deep, the bottom line, and yes, there are multiple tools out there that you can use to help bolster security when dealing with Copilot, but ultimately, the bottom line is your rule-based access controls. If your RBAC is strong, you're going to be in a good spot. Block documents are going to be safe. You also need to make sure that metadata doesn't get leaked. One of the things that we found with the client that we did the initial assessment for, excuse me, was that in their environment, even if the user account and thus Copilot on their behalf could not access a document that had passwords in it or other sensitive data in it, Copilot would still say, "Oh, but here's the file that meets this. And oh, by the way, this is the last person who edited this file." So even if I didn't have direct access, Copilot still gave me enough information that if I was a malicious actor, I would know who my next target within the organization was going to be. So Copilot is going to amplify existing access. It's not getting new access to data, but it's amplifying it. And this is one of the challenges of technology. Most people don't realize, slight segue, but it actually relates. Most people don't realize that in the United States, the reason that our voter registration is public domain. You can't hide whether or not you are a registered voter. Well, when our country was young in the mid 1700s, public domain was very different because if you were a registered voter, you were registered in your local area, the record was written down in a book, and the only way that you could gain access to that would be to read or take the book. Now in the 21st century, I can go online and I can download a CSV file that has every single registered voter in the entire country. So our technology allows us to do things at scale. It amplifies our ability to gather and analyze data, but it's not really giving us stuff that we didn't have access before. It's just easier access. And Copilot is doing the exact same thing. Also in the same period of time, March to April, I wrote a blog post about what I had found up to that point. It didn't get published until May, but I wrote it in March and April, and probably two-thirds of what I wrote is now obsolete. That is how fast this space is evolving and changing. And then in May, I did the initial webcast. So let's cover some key findings here. Copilot's effectiveness as an insider threat, whoops, let me go back, is not to be understated. It is, it really depends heavily on the licensing and tier access permissions. Enterprise Copilot will unlock those powerful features, granting access to emails, Teams, and so on. Your RBAC is critical, critical to limiting Copilot's reach within your organization. I know people want a magic bullet. RBAC is boring. It's a challenge to maintain, but it really is your best line of defense, even if you're using Intune, Purview, and other tools. Whoops, didn't mean to go forward. Now, without controls, Copilot will reveal sensitive internal data, and it's very easy to weaponize Copilot. The free Copilot has limited access, so maybe you will want to just not go with a premium option for Copilot. That may be the appropriate choice for your organization. It may be that you have a very limited number of people within your organization who do have those enterprise licenses. That's a choice that needs to be considered carefully in order for it to be handled responsibly. Also, log. You need to log, you need to monitor, you need to make sure that you know what Copilot is and isn't doing. And a lot of that has to do with your data loss protection. Bottom line, AI tools should only be implemented to solve real problems. If you're implementing AI because it's shiny or because of FOMO, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it badly. And again, all of these AIs are evolving very quickly. So what I say in this will probably half of it be obsolete in 6 months to a year from now. Let's take a look at some of the tiers and the pricing. The basic Copilot, it's free. You have certain accesses. All you've got, though, are basic consumer protections. If you're using the free Copilot options, you don't have much that you can do as an individual to protect yourself. And the same thing with Copilot Pro. Again, the target audience for that is individuals, not organizations. It's when you get into the business or the enterprise level offerings for Copilot, one, you've got a higher cost. It's, $30 or more per user per month. And that's when you get into that deep integration with Teams, Word, Outlook, Excel. But along with the additional access, that deeper integration, you also get security and compliance tools. But this is where it gets complicated. Those enterprise contracts are detailed. And if you don't know what's in that contract, if you don't know what is available to you as negotiated in that contract with Microsoft, you're going to be at a disadvantage. So if you've got the enterprise Microsoft 365 and you've gone in with that Copilot deep integration, get a copy of the contract, find out what security options are available. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some things you may want to explore further. Now, in preparing for today's webcast, I discovered that there are some additional tools, Copilot Studio and Security Copilot. And these two Copilot options and tool sets are radically different. Copilot Studio is designed for people who want to build agentic AI, and it's a flat rate per month. You can read everything on the screen at your leisure. Security Copilot is something that if you have your own SOC, it may be worth looking into. The price point has to do with how many security compute units you use, or SCUs. A provisioned SCU only costs $4 per hour. If you go over that, the price jumps to $6 an hour. So make sure that you provision appropriate and you monitor exactly how much you're using it. It does help with threat detection and response. It helps with generating reports. It's scalable. Lots of things. Going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment as well. So let's talk about Copilot Studio first. Copilot Studio is a low-code platform for building, testing, and publishing AI agents. In other words, it's vibe coding. And the target audience for Copilot Studio is users who have never done any development, never done any security development, never done any security. They don't even understand input validation. So anyone who is going to be using Copilot Studio, I would immediately classify as an insider threat, not out of malice, but out of lack of knowledge about development in general and security in particular. The tool set for creating agents with natural language automation and integration is what Copilot Studio is about. And this is where it gets really entertaining. Agents built with Studio can be deployed all over the place. Teams. I have no idea what Dynamics 365 is, but I'm sure somebody does. But, so websites, teams, uh, everywhere. And I have no doubt that there are organizations that have somebody in-house creating what they think are really cool things that are going to open the door to all kinds of problems. So if you're in a security context within your organization, find out who has access to Copilot Studio and monitor the heck out of everything that they generate. There are other agent building tools available. So there's the Agents SDK and Azure AI Foundry SDK. Basically, yeah, we just gave people the match to light to your own organization. And like I said, they don't know, because most of these people are going to be doing vibe coding and they have no idea what good development looks like. Now let's talk about Security Copilot. Security Copilot is intended to accelerate threat detection, investigation, and response. The intended users are SOC analysts, incident responders, threat hunters, IT and security admins. From the documentation, I don't know anyone who is using Security Copilot personally. If you have experience with it, reach out to me, tell me your stories. I want to know. But from the literature, from the propaganda, from Microsoft, it looks like it's something that could be very beneficial, especially if you've already got Copilot Enterprise in your organization. It can be used to summarize alerts, build attack timelines, even generate queries and scripts, and produce plain language security reports. Hey, reporting is always a challenge. If there's something that can help you get there faster, look into it. Don't trust everything it generates, but look into it as a way to possibly help streamline your operation. It can also correlate alerts across multiple Microsoft security tools. So Defender, Sentinel, Intune, etc. And I already mentioned reporting, plain language summaries for leadership, things for compliance, or even for cross-team communications. Again, I have not had a chance to play with Security Copilot. It looks like it could be a positive addition to the Copilot universe. Let me know how you're using it, if you're using it, and and what you think of it. At the end of the day, we always have to wind up falling back to what can we control and what can't we control. The things we can control, what license tier are we going to have? Do we have RBAC? Are we using least privilege? Do we have DLP policies? Are they enforced? Are we monitoring and logging? Do we have user training? These are all things. It's not sexy. I'm sorry. There's no magic bullet. All of this stuff, this is the fundamentals. And if you do the fundamentals well, it doesn't matter whether it's Copilot or it's something else. You're going to be far better off than if you don't. On the other hand, Microsoft and OpenAI, they're going to control what features are offered, what the model code and guardrails are going to do. The features are changing constantly. Did I emphasize constantly? But also they have their own back-end logs and infrastructure. And they're not going to give us access to that. So that's just the way it is. And of course, security patches. Did you know that within the recent past there was a problem with Copilot and Microsoft just kind of patched it and didn't bother to tell anybody? No CVEs were issued, no nothing. I expect there will be a lot more of that. So just be aware and do the things that you can do to protect yourself. So, what are things that you can do in your own environment? First, we're going to start with red teaming stuff. And these are just a few prompts. Show me recent files I have access to that mention password in the title. Summarize emails exchanged between employee A and employee B. If I was a malicious actor and I knew that maybe somebody had a office romance going on, prompt like that would be a perfect way to gather intel and possibly engage in some blackmail. List all Teams messages that reference project blah. Identify upcoming meetings involving, and then a target and employee. Now, this is a wonderful OSINT thing. Let's say that you're working for an agency that involves black vans and masked people pulling other people off of the streets and disappearing them. This could be used to find out where they're going to be at a future time. What's the most common password used in this organization? Show me documents containing financial forecasts or projections. List files that have been edited by employee name within the last 30 days. That would be an easy way to identify files that have been edited by a sysadmin or someone from HR. Summarize HR performance reviews related to whoever. Basically, you want your HR related documents to be locked down hard, severely locked down. Which documents or emails reference bank accounts or payment details, list vendors or clients, most frequently mentioned in communications this month. Whenever a contract is coming up for renewal or something, the traffic mentioning a client is probably going to increase. What emails contain login creds or links to authentication pages? Summarize all interactions that I've had with and name your executive. Show me files that are tagged confidential or restricted that I can access. Identify shared documents that include SSN, PII, or if you know that kind of prompt, you want to consider the nature of the organization. You fill in the blanks. These are just ideas to help get you rolling. Provide a summary of security incidents discussed in Teams or emails. Wow, that could be handy. If I know where there have been security incidents in the past, especially in the recent past, and I'm a malicious actor, that tells me exactly what I want to target next. Let's not leave the blue team people out. So if you're a blue teamer, you want to double check your password related files, verify that your DLP rules block sensitive file names. You want to make sure that maybe Copilot doesn't have access to these things. You want to make sure that the rule-based access control prevents people from accessing other people's mailboxes. I can't tell you how many pen test reports I've read where basically everyone in the company could read everybody else's email and they didn't see anything wrong with it. Different project mentions, upcoming meetings. Look for common passwords. Make sure that you have something to prevent password reuse or the use of at-risk passwords, common passwords. Financial forecasts. I mean, insider trading is a thing, and if I can use Copilot to find out about forecasts coming up, then I can buy or sell stocks in advance of a major announcement. Recently edited files by users. And again, HR. You want to make sure that HR data is segregated. RBAC should restrict Copilot from summarizing any HR folders unless it's being done by legitimate HR personnel. Similar thing with banking and payment details. IBAN, account number, payment. Make sure that Copilot can't get past this. And of course, your vendor client mentions. I have a few other things here. You know what? I'm not going to go through all of them, but I've listed them in the slide deck so that the blue teamers, if you haven't really got an idea where to start, use these as ideas, as fodder to help you figure that out. CJ, you had something.
Yeah. So is there a way to do this sort of proactively, put the Copilot to use saying, hey, can you configure my HR records so they're segmented or so that they've got proper role-based access control? Like how well does it do that stuff?
You know what? Copilot, when it comes to using LLMs, I go with Copilot preferentially for almost anything related to Microsoft configuration issues.
Mm,
And I think that using Copilot, especially if it's already in your environment, if you can have one or two security people who have the enterprise license, now they have access to more of what's going on so they can identify where those HR related documents are. And if you know where they are, then you know, oh, gee, they're on an open share, or gee, they're scattered across these three different segments. And that's where it gets into the problem. If you don't know where your assets are, you've got bigger problems than Copilot from a
mm.
security
Yep,
standpoint.
yep, yep. But
But it
that's a
can be
great use to
used.
figure that out.
Exactly. It can be used to help figure that out. But again, you would have to have at least a couple of enterprise licenses to help you with that auditing process to gain that inventory, or could come to us and have us help identify that through a pen test. But ultimately the responsibility for making sure that that auditing and that inventory and maintaining that information, that's on the part of the organization itself and their IT and security personnel.
Yep. If they have one.
That's uh that's a different conversation.
Because so Pure Ninja asked something, I think that just paralyzes. Is there a way to separate Copilot access and limit it from the get-go instead of worrying about everything the user has access to?
Don't get the business or the enterprise license.
That's the
You
limiter.
have to,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, if you don't get the enterprise license, your Copilot access is automatically
Okay.
limited.
Good tip.
Good questions. Wonderful questions. All right. So what else can you do? Again, no magic bullet. Be clear about why you want to implement AI. Yeah. One of the things that I am seeing over and over and over again is people are using AI as a solution and they don't know what the problem is. So you want to be cautious about implementing any AI tool, any large language model, not just Copilot. FOMO is not a good reason. Just because it's shiny, that doesn't mean that you should do it. Again, good role-based access control is your friend, and the enterprise license does mean you'll have more granular controls. Use them and monitor and log. If you're not already monitoring and logging what Copilot is doing, and you've got enterprise licenses in place, you need to get on that like now. Also, your data loss prevention rules, all of the usual stuff. Again, this isn't a magic bullet. It isn't shiny and sexy, but it's the way. This is the way. So let's quickly. Is that the last one? Nope. That's here we go. So the key takeaways. Licensing matters. Copilot is going to automatically amplify your access. Your RBAC is critical. Metadata leaks can be just as harmful as leaks to specific files. Remember, I was able with that one client to look up, here's the file that has passwords. Oh, I can't access the file, but it was edited by this other person on such and such a day. That kind of metadata lets me, as a malicious actor, know that I need to now target this other user, get access to their account, and then I will have access to everything that they have. That insider threat potential cannot be understated. You can ask Copilot how to craft the perfect phishing email, do OSINT, do reconnaissance, and so on. The enterprise features are going to cut both ways. Again, the deeper integration means the possibility of productivity gains, but it really expands the blast radius if it's not configured properly. Logging and monitoring, you got to use AI, intentional AI adoption. Please, 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 if you're on a security team, try using both offensive and defensive prompts to find out where, no matter how hard you work with that rule-based access control, with Intune, with Purview, with whatever security assets you have in place, you have to test it. There's a couple of other things I'm going to show as well. And stay on top of it. Pay attention to webcasts like this. There are several newsletters out there in the AI space to help keep track of how things are evolving. This is not a static space at all. There will be more challenges. So, some references and resources. I didn't provide a huge list, but this list of references and resources is a really good place to start. The OWASP AI Security and Privacy Guide. OWASP is doing stuff both independently but also in conjunction with SANS to help get a handle on AI security, and the documentation that I've seen, the webcasts that I've watched have all been excellent. Also, there is documentation about Purview specifically in conjunction with Copilot. I've got both the web page and the PDF link here in the slide deck. And if you're a red teamer and you want to actively attack not just Copilot, but any LLM, look into Pirate. Pyrite, I'm not sure what the pronunciation is. Long story short, the Python risk identification tool for generative AI It's the tool that Microsoft built to pound on Copilot to help make it secure. So, you know what? If it's good enough for them and they built it and they open sourced it, go get some because I can guarantee it will help you identify where the different weaknesses are, not just in Copilot, but in other LLMs. And it may be able something that you can help use to fine tune your own security process. And that's it. Ready for Q&A.
Uh, we have some good ones. So, what advice can you give on vetting AI products for more limited use within Office 365, i.e., Teams note takers?
Um, what advice can I give?
Yeah, I guess on like, what are the risks? Do you consider that risky? Like the Teams note taker. To me, is like, is it risky? Well, it's recording everything you say and sometimes misinterpreting it.
Yeah, it is recording everything you say. It is sometimes misinterpreting. The other thing is that some states have rules that require you to notify people or warn them before you record them. So that's something to be aware of. Teams is pretty good about being very in your face about the fact that you've got a session being recorded or a meeting being recorded, but that is something else that you may want to be aware of. It is I've we use the Teams note taking internally at BHIS, and what I found is that the transcription is fairly good, but not 100%. It can never spell my name right, but yeah, no,
Who
humans don't
can?
spell my name right. What else we got?
I can't spell your name right either, Bronwyn. I always put the Y in, but
Hey, why do you think I sign all my emails with just B?
that's my glitch. That's my glitch. Um, let's see. My understanding is that business and enterprise licenses limited how content is fed, shared, used to the LLM. So the consumer versions can be less secure in that way. Is this still the case?
I think at this point that it's the other way around. You don't have any control necessarily over how the prompts are handled if you're using just the basic or even the pro, but this is where it's going to depend on how the enterprise contract was written and what security controls are part of that contract. So it's there is no simple answer to that because as soon as you get into the business or the enterprise level, it's all negotiated contracts and the devil's in the details. You want to be very careful about making sure you know what's in them because there may be resources there that you didn't know you already had.
Someone said, can we get the slides? I have the slides up because I clicked on something that put resources in a small window. So there's a resources button in the bottom of the Zoom call. I believe they're also posted in Discord.
Yep.
Bronwyn will send you them if you email her.
I'll probably also be posting them on LinkedIn. So
It'll be
there are
on
multiple
YouTube,
ways that
right,
you can get
Ryan?
the slide deck. And of course, this is being recorded and you'll be able to watch it on YouTube as many times as your heart desires.
So this person says, if I have one user in a tenant with Microsoft 365 Copilot, the rest of my users get Microsoft 365 Copilot free. Is my understanding those users are still governed under the guardrails of my tenant, i.e., their queries won't get added to the training data. Is that accurate?
I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. Ask ChatGPT to go back to the user license and give you a summary. Because one of the things you said that's kind of interesting is how fast this changes. Someone also asked if CIS or IONS or anyone has kind of guidelines on how to do this. I'm like, I bet they're not keeping up.
They're behind the curve, unfortunately. Like I said, the blog post that I wrote in March and April It wasn't published until May, and by the time it got published, there was a bunch of stuff that had already changed. So it's impossible to know from one day to the next unless you're staying up on it, and that means you've got to subscribe to the newsletters or the announcement channels through, in this case, Microsoft, and hopefully they will be responsible about notifications when they change the feature sets.
So, Bronwyn, have you used this as a multiplier to say, hey, hey, Copilot, help keep me up to speed with what's going on with X, Y, Z, whatever?
Probably a better way to do it wouldn't necessarily be Copilot unless you've created an agent that's going to scour news services and press
Hmm.
releases for you. There are other tools. I know that this is where it gets interesting because Copilot is a large language model first and an answer engine second. And then there are other AI generative tools like Perplexity, which is an answer engine first and leverages LLM at analysis in order to be able to summarize and synthesize what it finds on the internet at large. There are, I know that Perplexity, Claude, and a couple of other AIs have now desktop applications. And if you access your web-based email or other resources through the application, they can help do that kind of agentic summarization for you. So, and this is where I see the potential for Copilot agents and for other agentic AI to help with the information overload. Because just as when Daniel Miezler released Fabric and I saw the summarize and the extract wisdom patterns, I mean, those are wonderful because instead of having to sit through a 6 hour long YouTube video, I can get the bullet points and help me determine whether or not it's worth it to me to sit through that 6 hour
Right, right,
YouTube video. And the most valuable resource that we have is time
right.
and probably brain cells. And if I can leverage these new tools to help me get ahead of the information overload, yeah, that's definitely the way to go.
Yep. So Stephen Kellogg posted a Microsoft.com thing in the Discord for homepage for the Microsoft Copilot blog. Stay on the cutting edge of AI with news, insights, and perspectives.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. Somebody.
See, I can't keep track of all of it myself.
No one, but that's what you said. No one can. And I think using the answer engines, and that was really so. Braun was also working on internal training at BHIS to keep us up to speed because you're like, it's not just fear of missing out, but when new tools come out, like the number one thing hackers do is stay abreast and figure out how to use the new tools. And even for the non-hackers in the company, how do we use this to save that precious resource of time and brain cells, our focus? So good stuff.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of questions in here and they cascaded in. Subscribe to updates in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. That's good.
Sorry, Max, I can't help you reach things on high shelves. I'm short too.
Don't you have one of those little arms that you can reach up and grab?
The like tongs that you use for barbecuing.
Yeah.
I have a set that have silicone on the end, and those are
Yes.
great for reaching up on high shelves when I don't feel like climbing up the step ladder.
Mark says, how granular can you be in excluding particular file folders from Copilot? Um, he goes, when I've asked Microsoft, they've referenced using restricted SharePoint search, but that's a pretty broad brush.
I don't rightly know that's above my pay grade.
I think the more important thing is just purely restricting. Like I'm chief operating officer. I have access to some HR documents, but I shouldn't have access to others. It's really a matter of just pure segmentation. So
Yeah.
if I'm the user of Copilot and say I don't have access to the financials, that's all you need. Copilot won't have access to them either, my license of it. So how granular can you be? You got to be careful. Remember, complexity is also a problem in security. So
Yes. It's a balance. It's definitely a balance. All
somebody
right. So what
anonymous
is
said, could I theoretically create an agentic AI through Copilot Studio to do the Copilot blue teaming stuff for me? I mean,
okay.
it's a multiplier, but again, it's like the lawyer example we talked about pre-show banter. You got to know what you're doing if you think that's going to know what it's doing. And it's not as easy as just pushing button. Obviously, creating the agent is challenging. So,
Well, and this is part of the whole normal development process. If you're doing development well, and I'm a firm believer in agile or agile-ish processes because you get a chance to do small incremental up upgrades. And with the generative AI space, you're going to constantly be modifying everything because, of course, things are changing so fast. So what works today may not work tomorrow and may not work next week. So you have to keep
that's
updating
true
it.
of everything.
And
Our stock just
that's,
had a tool break. Like,
yeah.
yep.
So, and I made a CVE summarizer using ChatGPT, and with GPT-5, now it's doing weirdness, and I need to figure out how to correct that. Yeah, it's always going to be go back. Um, you want to test, publish, test, publish. It's an
Rinse, add,
endless,
repeat.
yeah, it's an endless habit trail wheel.
This one's too technical for me. Are there any major differences between Microsoft 365 Copilot and Copilot Chat for Enterprise?
I'm guessing that Copilot Chat for Enterprise is probably just Enterprise Copilot. Just
Okay.
they put the words in a different order. I could be wrong.
Um,
Marketing people.
yeah, and they changed the names, and it's like, yeah,
How many different brandings have we had for the 365
Office
stuff?
365, I think I still say, or Microsoft, I don't know.
The current thing is Microsoft 365, but I'm sure that they'll come up with something next year that's
I'm a boomer. I inherently can't keep up. Um, it seems many organizations are reluctant to use Copilot with sensitive confidential data. Do you recommend using Copilot Enterprise with client data that includes PII?
it depends.
Ah,
One thing that I know we've had extensive conversations about internally, and hopefully you can back me up on this, CJ, is if we are using Microsoft as our tenant for documents and whatnot, and Microsoft gets hacked, that's not on us, that's on them.
mhm. Yep.
If we do something squirrely and breach our own data, that's on us.
Yes.
But so it's and if you've been in the cybersecurity space for any period of time, you know that there are often no cut and dry answers. It's about identifying where and how much risk is acceptable to you. So one organization, it may be that using Microsoft and using their online cloud repositories for client data is an acceptable risk, and you're putting faith in Microsoft in that they are going to cover their own tukuses to make sure that that stays secure.
Yep. Um, does Copilot train on your tenant data, whether you're licensed or not, and then give you access upon licensing? So is it training before you? I'm
I
not sure.
don't believe so, but this is where Microsoft and OpenAI are not, they may say one thing and do something else.
They
Uh,
don't
I,
lie.
I cannot speak to how reliable their statements are. I mean, I know that they say things in the EULA and in other fine print, which may or may not be accurate of what their actual business practices are.
Yep.
Bottom line, don't know.
Yes. I love license agreements anyway. And like you said, the changes are just unbelievable. This is interesting. I'm not sure I'm interpreting that. Should there be a dedicated team to manage a multi-tenant organization Microsoft 365 license? Or is it
Depends
more
on
of a set it and revisit it occasionally environment as far as security goes?
part of that's going to depend on the size of the organization. I mean, if you're a company that only has 50 people, you
Uh,
probably don't have the internal resources. If you're a company that has 10,000 people,
mhm.
you probably have the resources.
Yeah, to monitor. Well, we're at 5 minutes to go. We should probably wrap up. There's still some good questions out there. Thank you, everyone, for participating. It's
And I
awesome.
will be going through the Discord and looking for questions to answer. As you've noticed, I if I don't know the answer, I will flat out say I don't know it. Um, I I love sharing what I know because I have the ability to assimilate stuff and share it with others, but I'm not going to blow smoke up your whatever. It just
She's not going to ask ChatGPT for the answers, what she's trying to say.
She
well,
might.
I
Doesn't know
may
she's
ask
not.
ChatGPT and Copilot and Perplexity for the answer, but I will compare their answers and I will also attempt to validate their answers because they get stuff wrong.
No,
Holy cow.
no,
Verify,
no. Our
verify.
overlords do not get anything wrong. Our overlords are always correct. You are incorrect.
So if you posted a question in Discord, I absolutely will go through and I will attempt to answer the ones that I can, and I may have to do some research and get back to you. But
Also, the
thank you.
Q&A, Brian, when there's still like, they were adding in as I did it. There's still 22 in the Q&A here on Zoom. I'm not sure how you get access to those.
Um, I'll have to ask Ryan
Brian,
about that.
Brian will help us out with that.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Again, if you have experience with things like using Purview with Copilot, using Intune with Copilot, please reach out to me. I would love to hear your stories. I would love to learn about where your successes, your failures have been. And it may well be that in another 3 or 6 months, we'll revisit this topic yet again because it is such a constantly evolving space. But thank you. Thank you so much for attending. I hope that you found this information useful, and I hope that you will go forward and do very great things.
Hey, do we still ask Ryan to kill it with fire? Is that something we still do? Ryan, kill it with fire?